feel like I've made this video before and I'm scared that I did, so if I did, I'm sorry. Hello and welcome back to another video. Today is Tuesday, March 13th. This is part 2 to my video I made last week about how to stop procrastinating. They kind of go hand in hand, but it's not like directly part 1 and part 2, they're just like kind of together. The goal for this video, or for you in general, should always be efficiency and balance. Unfortunately, I really suck at this, having OCPD, because I focus so hard on like one thing that I might do one thing kind of pretty good, or it might just take me forever, but I never get all the things done that I need to get done. Most of the time when you are overwhelmed with a bunch of different things to do and you don't know where to begin, it's usually because you are extremely stressed out and there are a lot of deadlines to meet. As I'm sure you know, only a little stress is needed to actually be productive, and yes, there is a little stress needed, otherwise you just don't do anything. But this is something I learned in psychology called the inverted U hypothesis. But it's essentially the idea that an intermediate amount of arousal will put you at optimal performance, which essentially, in like real English words, means you only need like a little bit of stress. Like some stress is good. So that way you can do your best because you are motivated by the stress to get the stuff done. The arousal is like essentially the stress. But just as not enough stress is bad, too much stress is also bad, because then you end up not doing anything, which is essentially when you go to procrastinate. The other way is when you just don't have like any motivation and you like literally could care less. As I discussed in the procrastination part, it's often hard to get started at all. So maybe to get started when you are overwhelmed, you might decide to just do a little bit at first. I know, it seems like you have so many things to do, how could just starting with a little bit really do anything? But let's say you just work for like 10 minutes, and then you take like a 2-minute break, and then you do some more. It is better than doing absolutely nothing, and it gets you into it without overwhelming you. So that way you just focus on the little tiny thing you have to do, you can do it calmly and well, and then next time maybe you bump it up to 15 or 20. This is especially good for like weekends when you're already lazy and you really just don't want to do anything. But you can also start if you just want to like jump right into it, which is good if you feel like you are mentally capable to, then you can usually get more done that way. But you can either start with the easiest thing that you have to do first, or the hardest thing that you have to do. Often the hardest thing, or whatever the worst thing is, or like the thing you are dreading, you want to put off, and that's often also why you procrastinate. I've read on a few websites that says you should always do the worst first because then it's done and then you don't have to put up with it, which I do agree with. I think that's better because you just attack the problem and then it's out of the way and everything else on your plate seems so much more manageable. But I also understand that sometimes it's really not quite that easy and you can't even get yourself to get into it in the first place. So if that's the case, then, as I said with the procrastination video, you might just want to start easier, because at least you are starting and you are getting into it, and it is a whole lot better than doing nothing. And once you start, you'll kind of have like your mind in the right place, and then you can move up from there. Priorities and time management, says literally every website, even though it might just seem super simple, like writing out a lame list of the stuff you have to do and a bunch of the time you have, and then the time it'll actually take, and then you'll see that you are like 18 days behind schedule because everything always takes longer than you think it will. Yeah, that's why I struggle with time management. But it is important to organize yourself enough so that you can spend only the amount of time that you absolutely have to on everything. When you have 18,000 different things to get done, you can't afford to work for 3 hours and make it absolutely perfect and just the way you want it to be done for one out of 18,000 things, because that is just not manageable. It's not efficient at all. It never, ever, 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 ever has to be perfect. And I know if you have OCPD like me, the perfectionistic part of you will think that it does. Or if you're just a perfectionist in general, or if you hyper-focus, or whatever. It seems so easy just to get just to focus so wholly on one task so that you block everything else out and you still feel like you're doing good or productive or whatever because you're doing something, but it is never necessary. And when you have a gazillion things to do, you can only afford to focus on what is absolutely necessary. So if you're like studying a bunch of different subjects or whatever, it is a good idea to have a good understanding of the whole rather than focusing discretely on like one little item and mastering it. This is my big tip. Do a little bit of everything, but one thing at a time. What I mean by this is that yes, you have all these things to do, but so it doesn't overwhelm you and so you can actually work efficiently, you have to focus and do one thing at a time, which might seem like obvious. Yeah, you gotta do one thing to get to the next, but we are so used to multitasking as a generation. You're really only putting in like 30% into the 3 things you're doing, and your brain just can't process it properly. Ask someone to check in on you, like a friend or someone who lives with you. Become accountable to yourself and to other people. Sometimes it's good just to have like a reminder there, especially if you tend to get distracted and can't seem to like pull yourself together. But become accountable for your work as well as for your mental health. Like, are you looking after yourself, but are you getting the things you need to get done? Don't distract yourself. Let the work you are doing at the time you are doing it have your absolute whole entire undivided attention. This means also not worrying about all the 17 other things you need to do in your day. Not only does that make it go by quicker because you're not paying attention to anything else around you or the time or whatever, plus this makes you more excited for the break that I'm going to talk about in a moment that you absolutely need to take for yourself even if it doesn't seem like you need to. After you work on something for so long, it just kind of makes your brain go fuzzy, like you don't even know what you're reading anymore, kind of fades the rest of the world out. Which is why breaks are absolutely vital, but I have learned throughout my stressful school time, breaks are absolutely vital, otherwise you can burn out. Which, if we go back to the inverted U hypothesis diagram, occurs when you are at your maximum level of arousal and you are you're low, okay? It doesn't help you very much. And what burnout is, it's when you're essentially mentally, emotionally, physically exhausted from overworking yourself, which I've experienced many times, and if you are overstressed, trying to do everything all the time, you will eventually get there if you haven't already, and it's very damaging for especially your mental health. And if you think your mental health can suffer because everything else has deadlines and you have to get the things done, otherwise there is no future for you, then you are absolutely, completely wrong. Because there is no future for you if you're going to spend the rest of your life doing that. You might think it's just a semester or just a one-time thing, but it isn't, because you get yourself in the habit of unintentionally putting yourself in a bad position. You essentially give yourself permission to continually hurt your mental health, which is not okay. Why is mental health important, you might be asking? I need to figure that out sometimes also. Obviously, you can't do your best if you're not putting yourself first. You need to put your actual needs before anything in your life that you need to do, no matter what. Or what you think you need to do. Self-care is vital. You have to take real breaks. You can't just be like, okay, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And then you just like stare at your paper and you're like, maybe I should change that. I do this all the time with art. I'm like, I need to get up and like go away for a minute, but then I just end up staring at it. So I just like sit there and analyze it instead of getting up and getting out of the room, getting some fresh air, eating a snack, playing something on my phone, participating in a hobby, another hobby, switching hobbies, whatever you're doing. Just switch it up. The point is to stop yourself from thinking about whatever it is you are getting away from. It also doesn't mean to go do something else. It means like taking some time for you to actually calm your brain down and let it stop for a minute. Sometimes, if I am really stressed and frustrated with one particular thing, I will switch subjects. Switching back and forth can often reduce my stress because it's like, okay, I don't have to do this right now, but I still feel like I have the mental capacity to do something else because I'm in a productive mode, then I will switch over and do something else. But that's only, like I said, if I feel like I have the actual mental energy to accomplish something else. Do not ignore the importance of breaks, and do not give up on everything entirely and do this only. Don't just take a break for like the rest of the day because you're like, yeah, it's okay, I did something. So it's not really okay, because then you're just procrastinating from the rest of the things you have to do while using that as an excuse, which is not what you want. That doesn't scream efficiency. This will only increase your stress in the long run because you're continually putting off things that can be done. For some reason, there seems to be this like stereotype about how life is so shitty and just hard, so it has to stay that way. But like, why don't people just make it easier on themselves? The hard path isn't always the right one. As I was kind of talking about in my last point, reduce your stress by looking after yourself, even if it seems like your work is life or death, or your current situation is so desperate that you have to get your grades up, otherwise you're screwed. No, there's always another way. This is one of my favorite quotes that I have read on another video some time ago on my channel. I don't remember which one it was, so I'm sorry. But it's a Tumblr post that I love, and I think I'll just insert it here. It just kind of proves the inverted U hypothesis to be correct, because mental breakdowns lead to burnout, then you can't do anything. Just harms you more overall, really. My last few tips. Enjoy yourself when you can. Take advantage of those little bits of time where you're not really doing anything, or you're doing something else, like simply sitting and waiting to get to school in the car or whatever. Enjoy some nice music while you're showering. Look at how pretty it is outside. If you just enjoy other things in general, it'll put you in a better mood so you can hopefully work more efficiently, but also just so you can get away from it for a minute and think about something else and be in the moment entirely. As I mentioned also in my previous video, having a nice environment to study or work in can make it a lot easier. Just be comfortable, but not too comfortable while you're working, so you can still work, but feel good about it while you're doing it. Find a way to enjoy the work if you are able to. Try not to let the expectations that are placed upon you completely ruin everything. It's best if you can enjoy something, at least. That's pretty much all I have to say for this video, so thank you for watching, and see you later. Bye!